175 years old, the city of Waco has a rich history, so rich there's a podcast dedicated entirely to sharing the most interesting stories from the past.
Yeah, so whether you're a local or someone planning to visit soon, Waco History Podcast is for you. Joining us now to share more is the podcast host, Dr. Sloan. Dr. Sloan, good to have you again.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, so I feel like you're the perfect person for this particular podcast, a professor of history, the director of the Institute for Oral History at Baylor. When did your love for history begin?
Yeah, that's an old love. I mean, it's everything that's ever happened. I mean, so it's an endless avenue for exploration. There's always more to learn. I'll never have complete mastery of my field. So I wanted to be a lifelong learner, and what's more interesting to study than history?
It's everything that's ever happened. I like the way you put that. It's a lot of material to work with.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
You'll never get bored. Your first episode dropped 7 years ago. Share with us the history of this podcast. How did it start?
Sure. About 10 years ago, this month, actually, I started a local app and a local website on Waco History. And so you can go on the app and see 215 stories there, see historic images and oral histories and things like that. And about 3 years ago, a podcaster approached me, Randy Lane, who I'm continually indebted to, and said, hey, can you come talk about history and I'll do all the production part? Okay. And you guys know how big a gift that was to do all the production. Sure. So we started that way, and we've grown since then. And when Randy left, we went with Rogue Media Network, which is who we're with now. Yeah.
And we're seeing a little bit of how your website works when you log on or get the app. You can scan the QR code on your screen as well to listen. What are some of the standout stories you've told so far over the last 7 years?
Yeah, it's been really a lot of fun, and we really wanted to be a warts and all sort of podcast. So there's obviously great stories of triumph in Waco's history. There are those heroes we want to talk about. There's the harder parts of Waco history that we're able to get into. And so the podcast gives us kind of space to bring in experts that have studied some of these areas and really have extended conversations about how interesting Waco's history is.
We've got some video there, some pictures of some of your experiences in past podcasts. As far as you know, some of the stories specifically that you've covered, can you share some specifics as at this time? And there's been a lot. So
yeah, even as these go through, talking about everything that you would think we would get into, Doris Miller, and talking about the Alico building. I was looking at some of your backdrops here. All those images on there, there's generally a story that has a history behind it. Getting into Jesse Washington lynching, so difficult aspects of Waco history, but also unknown aspects of Waco history. Waco had a chiropractor that was arrested 66 times for practicing medicine without a license.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, if you want to learn more, you got to go to the podcast. I don't have time to tell you here.
Yeah.
But even getting into the history of things like air conditioning in Waco and banking in Waco, it all has really an interesting history. For sure. Yeah.
And how fitting you just mentioned the Alico building and the history of our landscape, our downtown. That's where the Rogue Media offices. You guys have quite the view. Yeah,
we're on the 21st floor, so when I started with Rogue, we weren't, but now I always say it's as high as you can go in the Alico without seeing a lawyer.
There you go.
It's a great view. We have an incredible view, and we can see history all around us from that perch.
Of course, you mentioned you don't shy away from the controversial. Why is it important to tell the whole story?
I think it really is, even the difficult parts. I mean, we can think of our personal history, right? It's all makes up who we are, and it all makes up who we are as a community, and so I don't think we need to shy away from it. Yeah.
You don't shy away from some scary stories, too. It'll be fitting around Halloween time. Can you give us a taste of some of these hauntings or scary stories people might enjoy?
Yeah, we got into lore and legend, and so there are some great. There's a story about a haunted couch that you probably want to check out.
We know about that one.
We know about the couch.
Stories about that one. You hear the haunted couch is legendary.
It's big news, yeah.
It is.
Big news. So we explored in depth on the Waco History Podcast.
I like it. As far as favorite episodes, is there one that you have to pick that you say, I really love doing that, I love that one?
Well, one that you can listen to, I tell the story of going in when I was writing my history PhD, and my advisor said, what do you want to write on? I said, barbed wire, and he said, no.
That's very specific.
Yeah, he rejected
barbed wire.
Yeah, so we have a great episode on barbed wire, and as I always say, it strings together a series of compelling points.
Oh,
strings
wow.
together.
Oh,
Okay.
man. We have a new punster in the house. That was a good one. I love that one. That's great.
Is there anything you've discovered throughout this process that locals wouldn't know that you could share here on
Yeah,
the show?
that's a great question, and I oftentimes will go out and talk about Waco history, and I think even longtime Wacoans, that we know things about our history, but there's just a certain few things that we know about our history, and so there's a lot of things to discover there that even longtime Wacoans, I think, will really appreciate.
I think that the history of Cameron Park, I know you did an episode about that one. I've listened to that one a few times. It's such an interesting way it was developed, and it's massive, and it's such a lot to tell there. So if you get a chance to listen to that one, if you can. What is next for the Waco History Podcast? What can you let visitors or listeners know they can expect from it in the coming years?
That's great. So this year we're going to be very busy. We're starting a new series, and we're using Waco's 175th to do kind of a bit of a countdown. In each generation, the top 5 event people issues of that generation. So kind of a 25-year window.
Okay.
So we just recorded 1850 to 1875 and got into some of those things. You got to listen to find out what they are, but we count them down 5 to 1. And then Rick Tullis, who's been on with me as a guest on some of my episodes, is joining me on this journey.
Okay.
Have those already dropped, that first one that you
It
recorded?
has not dropped yet,
Okay.
but it will be dropping soon. And we even commissioned a new song. Local artist Wes Cunningham wrote an original song for us, and so we're a lot of enthusiasm about the new series.
How do you make barbed wire fun? And I say that, listen, I say it in jest, but I got a feeling it's the people stories around it that make it really interesting. Am I wrong about that? How do you make it?
It's just thinking about the impact, and that's one thing this series will do. We'll not only talk about things like the suspension bridge, but what has it meant for Waco to have the suspension bridge over its almost 155-year history now.
Yeah. What is it about this that has kept you going with it? I mean, when you have a little passion project, they can fall off and disappear. I mean, but why have you kept on doing this for as long as you have?
Part of it is the website app project we've had. There's a real synergy there where we'll publish things on there. Les Richardson, who's the second African-American head coach in the Big Ten, was from Waco. And we just put his story on the app, so there's an opportunity there to tell more about it on the podcast. And so that relationship, and again, there's always more to learn. It's amazing if you dig deeply, even in one place, how much you really learn and discover.
We mentioned the Magnolia Silos weekend. I meant to say that you talked about the castle on that series, right, with Chip and Joe.
I
when you were
did.
First looking into redeveloping it and everything what it is now, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do that with them. I think they didn't have an owner, so they could come learn some history about it, and really was a lot of fun to do that, because even that building tells a story.
For sure.
That's what I was going to ask too. You've probably talked to countless people since you started this and learned their stories. Do you ever go on site for the podcast, or is it mainly recorded in your office in the Alico building?
That's a great question. We've done some on-site recordings. As I drive through Waco now, I imagine a series of pins, all the places where we have a pin, all the places where I need a pin. But we've done some live events at the Dr. Pepper Museum. At Pinewood, we did an event on the Crash at Crush, which of course is a fascinating story that you can check out and see pictures of on the app. And so we've gotten out in the community, and that's been a lot of fun.
Great.
Most definitely. Anything else you want to add before we go?
I think that's it. So be looking for, you can find Waco History Podcast wherever you find podcasts, and be looking for this new series to start dropping here in a couple of weeks.
Okay, very good. We're excited about it. We again appreciate you, Dr. Sloan, for coming to talk about this. Again, the QR code on the screen will take you to this information. You can learn more there. Be right back.